Hello, everyone. I'm Rod Hughes, and today I'm joined by Chris Dunlap, Director of Risk Management, and Scott Pannone, Senior Risk Consultant, both with Lamb Insurance Services. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today. We're here to talk about hurricane and named storms, and specifically their impacts on care facilities. Scott, 2022 is predicted to be an above-average storm season for named storms, and hurricanes and the destruction they cause can be of particular concern to care facilities. How can these facilities better prepare themselves to reduce the risk, protect their property, as well as the life and safety of those in their charge?
The best thing a care facility can do as we approach any severe storm season is really to be prepared. As we know from recent memory, Hurricane Ida was a significant storm that had immense financial burden to a large area of the United States from the Gulf Coast up towards the Northeast, and the loss of life was devastating with over 100 fatalities. So how susceptible an organization is to a hurricane event largely depends on how well that facility is prepared. So just to list a few of those items, having a storm disaster response plan. As an organization, have evacuation routes been identified out of your area as needed? Is the facility properly stocked with emergency supplies? Have the staff been properly trained to respond in the event of an emergency? Furthermore, proactive reviewing areas where stormwater runoff may occur is also important, at least twice per year. Are you checking gutters, downspouts, catch basins, or sewers for debris buildup, and are those areas being properly maintained? Thirdly, cleaning and taking inventory. In the event that the forecast points to severe weather, have dedicated staff walked the premises and cleared outdoor furniture or removed unfastened items. This also allows you to have an inventory so losses can be quickly reported to your insurer afterwards. And lastly, even with some of the above best practices in place, you don't want to be caught off guard in the event of a storm. If you dismiss weather reports and warnings, your staff, your clients, your property will be put at risk. So it's really important to keep your eye on reports, but also respond accordingly and to take them seriously.
That's a great checklist, Scott. Thank you. Chris, if a care facility is damaged due to a named storm, what are some of the first steps an insured should take in the wake of the storm to expedite the claims process?
In the event of a storm or significant damage to your property, it's critical to report the claim to your insurance carrier immediately. This is critical because getting to the front of the line in the event of a widespread event can ensure expeditious response from the carrier and ensure that you can start repairs as soon as possible. When approaching your damaged property, you always want to check the safety of the premises. Oftentimes in storms, hurricanes, power lines may be down and damaged. Structures may even be compromised. So it's important to ensure that it's safe to re-enter the facility. Once that occurs, you can document the damage that occurred. Videos, photos, those are great ways to quickly document the damage that occurred. At that point, you can begin temporary repairs. Your insurance policy permits you to make emergency temporary repairs to prevent further damage. A hurricane is a great example of this, where there may be continual rain and you may need to take immediate actions to prevent further damage. And then throughout the process, documentation is critical. You want to be reimbursed for all the repairs that you make, and it's really just critical to keep all receipts, invoices, and document even the labor hours that are spent by your team.
Those are great insights, Chris. Thank you. So that covers what happens after a storm. Let's talk a little bit about what you can do in a preventative fashion. How important is it to annually review an insurance policy to compare the existing coverage to your actual or evolving risk?
Insurance policies with respect to hurricane coverage can be a bit tricky because oftentimes there's an interplay of multiple policies that work together to provide you complete coverage. So To that end, it's critical to work with your broker to make sure that you're fully and properly covered. Just to briefly touch on a few of the policies that may respond. There's your standard property policy, which typically excludes flood, but it may provide coverage for sewer and drain backup, and it may provide coverage for wind damage. Or, if wind rips your roof off and the wind-driven rain comes into the facility, that may be covered by the property policy as opposed to the flood policy. Then there's the National Flood Insurance Program. That is a FEMA-sponsored plan that provides coverage for the highest risk properties and moderate risk properties, but it is limited. It is limited for commercial buildings to $500,000 of building coverage and $500,000 of contents coverage. Beyond that, there's a policy called a difference in conditions policy, which essentially stacks on top of a national and NFIP policy, or it steps in the absence of one. And these policies can, be written for higher limits. So if you have a multi-million-dollar building, you may have coverage fall under all three policies: your property policy, your NFIP, and then the difference in conditions policy. A great example of where these policies intersect was Hurricane Ida, where many of our clients sought coverage under their property for the sewer backup and then additional coverage for their flood through either their NFIP or their difference in condition policies. But with the changes that occur and the intersection of three policies, it's critical to review it annually with your broker to ensure that you have adequate coverage.
That's helpful information, Chris. Thank you. Scott, what other tips or advice would you offer to operators of care facilities to ensure they're best protected from hurricane and other named storm risks?
I'd advise care facilities to remember to think about the populations within their facilities that are under their care. Elderly or those with other physical limitations may need special assistance in evacuating or responding in the event of emergency. So we want to ensure that their plan takes into account these factors that might require additional time, resources, or protocols. I'd also advise care facilities to ensure emergency preparedness is a staple in their training curriculum. Making sure all staff in the facility understand their specific site-specific disaster response plan, which should be communicated to every employee at the time of hire and then annually thereafter through in-service. Lastly, I'd also like to describe what we do for our clients here at Lam Insurance. We have a dedicated team of risk management, risk control, and claims professionals, and are really here to help care facilities ensure their policies align with hurricane risk through a coverage consultation. Once a LAM client, our risk control team will develop a service plan inclusive of a disaster response plan review to make sure that they're prepared accordingly should an event occur. And lastly, we have a dedicated claims team who are there to assist with the claims reporting and follow-up processes to properly respond in the aftermath of a storm. So we always encourage clients to tap into the resources and expertise available to their facility to make sure that they're properly protected on a pre, during, and post-loss basis.
Chris, Scott, this has been very helpful information. Thank you for joining us today.